Hi everyone, Magnus here, and today I'm going to be showing you a nice introductory video towards all basic tactics, starting all the way from hanging pieces, just counting attackers and defenders, up until discovered checks, pins, forks, skewers, and a basic introduction to all of these different things. The puzzles today are aimed at beginner players under 1000. They might not be too challenging for more advanced players, and if that's you, then that's no problem. I'll have some videos coming out soon with some more difficult puzzles and learning puzzles on chess.com. Maybe like a survival on how to get over 50 on puzzle survival, something like that. So today I'm just going to start straight with hanging pieces. Now, under the 1000 level, as you can see, this is one of my earlier games that I played. Under 1000 here, this is how pretty much every game gets decided. If you can get through a whole game without hanging any of your pieces and taking their hanging pieces, you are going to have a fantastic game and you're probably going to win. So I'm just going to look through this game first. This is standard. Opponent's probably going for some Scholar's Mate. I am trying to open up the center. I attack the queen. Now if it was white to move again, that queen is a hanging piece. They move the queen. And I move my bishop because I'm thinking I've just put their queen under attack. They've just moved their queen. I want to attack their queen again. But can you see what I missed here? Where can the queen go that I didn't think about? Did you just think for a second? Yes, that's correct. This bishop is a hanging piece. And even though I'm attacking the queen with a piece that's worth less than it, which is generally a good thing because the queen can't afford to trade for the bishop, actually the queen can just take the bishop completely for free, and that is a hanging piece, and I blunder the bishop and blunder the game. But this game is far from over. I played d5, which is actually a really bad move. If I'd played taken in the center, there's a very good chance they would have just taken back, and I would have delivered queen d8 checkmate. But they didn't do that. I didn't do that. They took my pawn in the center, which, by the way, another hanging piece. Every pawn move changes something about the position. I move my pawn forward, deeper into the position, and all of a sudden the queen can now see this pawn. So try and visualize that if you can. The fact that this pawn is no longer here, this pawn being defended by the knight and the queen, therefore not being a hanging piece, moves forward and reveals this pawn, which is now a hanging piece, and the queen can simply take it, which my opponent does. I block with the queen. This is just the trade. The queen is only defended once by the king. They decline. I take the knight in the center, most likely thinking I've got some discovery on the queen, although the question that you need to be asking now is, let's say they take back my knight. Am I really winning a queen when I take this? Is that a hanging piece? No, it's not, because there's a bishop covering as well. So there is no hanging piece here. Also, black can take the queen with check, forcing my king to take and then take my knight. Black can do loads of things here. They decide to take this pawn here. However, that does give me an option to go for an aggressive check. I decide to go for a discovered check. Obviously, a little bit distracted. I don't really know what this. I guess I'm going for the rook, but the issue is my rook's hanging. I decide to take the bishop. They take my rook. They block up because if they took back with the knight, I would take, and that would be a hanging king. They decide to cover up. I give them a check. Now I'm going for this hanging pawn because it's undefended. The bishop just moved away. They block. And what is a hanging piece that I can take while also saving my queen? That's correct. Oh, that's okay, I didn't even play that. But the b pawn would have been a hanging piece that I could have taken. I decided to take on c6 and then go in, apparently, which is just worse. I don't know why I did that. They played f6. I took the hanging rook. But now I have a hanging bishop because this bishop is not defended and it's attacked by a weaker piece, which is the pawn. I also have a hanging knight. They have a hanging knight here. As you can see, a lot of these games, sub 1000 level, boil down to hanging pieces as quickly as possible and trying to collect them all first. So that means that in order of operations, I should be trying to take the knight with check, because that's a hanging piece that comes with check. And then hopefully I can move my bishop out of the way and it won't be hanging. They cleverly actually move the king to take the knight here. Which means that when I take the knight, it won't be a check and they can take my bishop. I take the knight, they take my bishop. I give them a check, they block up, and this rest of the game is largely irrelevant. Not too much to say. I lose some more pieces, and I guess I lose on time. But that's not really the point. The point is, the game was largely decided by hanging pieces here, 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 and more hanging pieces there, potentially on the b-pawn, hanging rooks, taking hanging pieces with check, and all of that. So if you can go through a process, right? Not the Kramnik process, but if you can go here and do your own blunder check process, saying moving the bishop here is a high risk move. This is not a square that I have defended in my position. That is dangerous, right? Potentially, if I can see the queen can see me, right? So if I'm putting my piece on an undefended square where I see the queen and the queen sees me, the queen's going to take you. Like, the only piece that can attack the queen without being attacked by the queen is a knight. As you can see, the knight can move here, but the queen doesn't see back that way as well. That wouldn't work. So always make sure your pieces are defended when they're doing attacking rolls. Try and keep solid. Potentially a knight move to a nice protected square here. The pawn that guards the knight, that would have been good. Knight here would have been good as well, maybe, to set up the bishop coming out. Now the knight would be defending that square. So just try and make sure that you are defending squares that you want your pieces to move to first. That's generally a good rule of thumb. If you can try and have your pieces defended by at least one other piece or a pawn, that's often much, much safer than having them loose. There's a saying that loose pieces drop off, and this is very true, especially under the 1000 level. Okay, moving on. This is now a question of counting attackers and counting defenders. I believe I've made this game up, and the point of this is to say, I am now attacking this knight, I'm attacking this pawn with my knight, this pawn is a hanging piece, they defend it, now you just have to do the calculation process. I take the pawn, it's defended once, one attacker, one defender, defender wins. Defender always wins if it's an equal number of attackers and defenders, as long as the attacking and defending pieces have the same value. That's a rule. So I move my pawn into the center, in this example, attacking the pawn once again. Now, let's say it was white to move. Can I take the pawn? Yes, I can take the pawn. I can take the pawn because I take it with the knight, they take it with their knight, I take back with my pawn, I now have two attackers against one defender. Let's say black defends the pawn. Now it's white to move. Can I take the pawn? I can take the pawn. I can take, and take, but that's just an equal trade. That's not necessarily a good thing. Now, there's another saying that says to trade is a mistake, because you want to be building up the pressure on this pawn. I'd much rather win this pawn for free than just get it via a trade. Than just trade down some pieces. That seems quite clear. So a knight gets developed, they develop a knight, and I develop a bishop here. Now the question is, if it's white's move again, are we threatening to win this pawn? And I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that. And the answer is yes. We are absolutely threatening to win this pawn. And the reason is because this knight is a key defender of the pawn here, right? And so let's say that black just moves, black castles. Black is unaware of the threat here. I take here, and if they take back here, then I get to capture this. And if they take, I take then bishop, and white wins. There is a little bit of complication here. They can play takes here. In which case, let's say white takes back like this. Let's say they take like this. Maybe you'll see that this is a fork with e5. They go rook e8. You can castle. And there is some tactic with potentially, this is now getting more complicated. Let's say you take here. You could get a situation like this. But that's not the point of this exercise. The point of this exercise is to just be saying that remove the defender and win the piece after having reduced the number of defenders. Because as you can see here, we go from having 1, 2 attackers and them having 1, 2 defenders to them having 1 defender and us having 2 attackers. In this case, the attacker wins. Okay. So now, moving on to a little puzzle that I've got for you. And this is about trying to cover checks or deal with checks in different ways. Actually, no, sorry. This is about counting how many checks the opponent has. So this is just a little calculation exercise. And it's to see if you can spot how many checks black can play in this position. So I'll give you, if you want to pause the video, that'd be good. I'll also give you a couple seconds just to think about it. Okay, so I might get this even wrong because there's so many checks here, right? But let's start counting. So the check with the queen, because a check is when you're attacking the king on your next move. There's a check with the queen. There's a check here, a check here. That's a check as well, not a good move. There's a check here, and a check here. There's also a check all the way over there. So far that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's 8 checks. That's a lot of checks. There's also a check here, makes 9. And there's a bishop that can check the king. That one's quite hard to see because your eyes are immediately drawn to the queen. Are there any other checks? I do not immediately see any other checks. And if you spotted all of these and you said that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wait, have I got that wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think that makes 10 checks. Not exactly sure. But if you could spot most of these, that's a very good result. And now my follow-up question for you is, which one of these checks is actually good? Which one of these checks is checkmate? Meaning that the white king can no longer move. So I'll let you think about this again. And if you say queen e4, that's very good. The queen covers all of this, goes straight through the white king. The white king cannot move back, cannot move up in any direction, and at the same time is in check and is therefore in checkmate. Okay. So now I've got another little exercise on being the defending side of all the checks and trying to look at all the different ways that you can counter these checks. Now this is a line in the England Gambit. Black gives a check, and it's up to white to respond. How many ways can white block these checks, and which one is a good way? Okay, so firstly, white can't move the king. White has no way to move the king, which means that we have to block the checks in some kind of way. You can block with the pawn. You can block with the knight. You can block with the knight here. You can block with the bishop. You can block with the queen. And probably the most tricky is the backwards knight move, where you can block this way. And the question you have to ask yourself is, which of these blocks is a good move? Well, we're going back to hanging pieces, right? This is slightly more complicated. It's a fork, but also a hanging bishop over here. So this bishop's under threat. So let's say that we just develop the knight here. This would be no good. Black would take the bishop. Okay. So you might then come to the conclusion, you should block with the bishop. They take the pawn, not a big deal. Develop the knight, and this is kind of tricky, but the queen defends the rook. They cannot take, the bishop defends the knight. Alright. Now comes the question of checks and checkmates. This is a game of mine, back when I was 750. I played with the black pieces, and I believe I lost terribly to some kind of scholar's mate. Oh no, yeah, it was a fried liver. I took, they sacked the knight as is normal. They gave me a check, and I responded really badly by going back to e8. If I wanted to try and fight for something, I would have gone up here, defended my knight. The knight is now a hanging piece. They take it. I decide to attack their bishop and go for this pawn, I guess. A bit tunnel vision on my own ideas. They needed to, they found a move that just mates me in one. So try and find the checkmate in one here. Yeah, of course, it's the classic scholar's mate. They deliver a checkmate. I was very sad, and I probably quit chess for the day. And now we're moving on to some checks and checkmates, part 2. So this is looking at some using the king as a target to potentially get some tactics from it. This is a game of mine. I played again around 7:50 near the start. I give this check here, which pretty much forces them to take with their rook. 2 pieces for the rook is not a good exchange, by the way. You should never do this. I should just play like d3, maybe like king h1 f4, d3 if I want a kingside attack. I go for this. Hanging pieces. What's going on here? e4 pawn is hanging. They decide not to take it. They attack my knight again. Now they have 2 attackers. I have 1 defender. I'm in trouble. This is now a fork on my queen and my pawn. I move my queen to h3. And that's me giving a check. And okay. Okay. And this looks like a classic pattern. If I asked you to, if I told you that white is winning here, I'd be lying to you. But at the same time, what would you be thinking? Firstly, you might see this hanging pawn. And you'd actually be correct. That is the best move. But some of the more advanced among you might be familiar with this back rank pattern where you sack the queen, you sack the rook, they trade off, and then you checkmate the black king on the back rank. This looks like a classic back rank tactic. But you have to notice, every time a pawn moves forward, something changes in the position. What's changed in the position? Well, the bishop now covers this f8 square, right? So after I deliver my check, they simply block with the bishop, and I am dead lost. I end up trying to stack my 2 rooks, which is actually a very good idea. And here, there's a tough tactic to spot, but I'm actually doing okay again. And the point is, this is a deflection tactic where I should sack the rook for the knight, right? And then, if this were to happen, white's doing probably okay. About equal. Maybe black's still better with the pawn structure. But it'd be much better than what I got. I wasn't sure what to do. They made a huge blunder here. I could have just taken, and that would have been winning. Because this bishop is lost, right? If they go here, I go here. Bishop is completely lost. I'm making a queen. White wins. I missed that. For some reason, I didn't take the knight. They ended up forking me. Oh yeah, this is a nice tactic here, attacking the king, and a really, really long diagonal backwards fork to win the rook. And eventually, they get a nice skewer, using my king, exploiting checks to get to the rook, and they make a bunch of queens, probably in mockery of me, and they checkmate me. Very nice. This is a game that I'm using to explain the use of forks. I believe it has a lot of forks in it. Forks are most common with the knights. They can also happen with the bishops. So let's say I have a bishop here, and there's a king there, and there's a rook there. That would be a fork. Or let's say they have a king here. I have a knight here. They have a queen here. The knight would fork the king and the queen. Okay. It's fairly, well, not normal, but it is what it is. I end up sacrificing the knight, and this is an example of a fork. It's not a good fork, because I just sacked a knight, and also, Actually, I'm not sure exactly what the best move is. There's a bunch of pieces hanging. Really crazy, as always. They decide to block, which is not great. They probably should just take here. And because they didn't block, I get to execute my fork. Oh wait, no, sorry. I have to take first. They actually got out of it. Ah, but there was a secondary fork. In that the queen also forked the king and the bishop, which was undefended. And there's one last fork here, the mini pawn fork. Pawns are very good at doing this. Unfortunately, I probably missed they could trade with check and then block the pawn. They did see it. But then they moved the knight back and they missed the in-between move, Zug. What? Did I queen? Yeah, it's a terrible move. I should have taken the rook with check, and then probably like brought my bishop in and tried to checkmate them. Instead, I made a queen, and then I gave a fork here. Another fork to finish the game. They resigned for some unknown reason. They should definitely play on here. I don't believe that I'm winning this all the time. They can bring their queen back, start putting some pressure on pawns, maybe start pushing their H pawn. There's definitely a lot to play for here still. But I decided to resign. They decided to resign. Now this is onto the pin. I've designed this game myself. This is quite a known line in the Vienna. It's a known trick. When they play this d6 move, see if you can spot what's a really, really strong pin here. What? Oh, yeah, sorry. You have to play h3 first. Because if you don't, if you play bishop g5, then they'll bring out their bishop here, and that's bad. But if you play h3 and then they go bishop e6, then boom, you have bishop g5. This just completely wins because they cannot move the knight. There is what's called a temporary, I don't know if it's a temporary pin, but there's absolute pins where the piece cannot move, and then there's relative pins where the piece, if it moves, I win a queen, which is bad. Bad for the opponent. Let me just check whether or not... Oh wait, no, bishop g5 can be played, of course, because then they'll go bishop g4 and I'll go queen f6. Never mind. I'm just getting across the point that this is a relative pin. The knight can move, but it would be bad. And now this pin actually turns into a fork, where the queen and the rook are under fire, and there's a hanging piece. So we're starting to combine lots of different tactics, as you can see in opening tricks. And that's sort of how tactics develop. They all merge into one. Okay. Skewers. This is really quite a famous example. I think it was in the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, where the two kids, there was like some kind of tactic where the king was forced onto the diagonal of the pawn promotion, and they are both pushing their pawns, and if you look here, it says it's white to move. It seems like, what's going on? Black queens first, right? But it's not always who queens first that matters, it's who queens first with the check, right? And in this case, this check is deadly. I mean, of course, this puzzle's like not hard at all. I mean, white can only hope to push, so there's only really one option, right? But it's a nice example of promoting with a skewer and winning the queen. Okay. Finally, onto the discovered checks. These are some of the more complicated tactics, but also very powerful. A discovered check can only be blocked, or discovered double checks, even stronger, can only be blocked or moved away from. Or discovered double checks, which are even stronger, the king must move from a discovered double check. So this is a known line in the Petrov. White often plays queen e2, and at the lower levels, black's always playing knight f6, knight d6. And can you spot the tactic here that wins on the spot? Yeah, that's correct. It's knight c6, attacking the queen, and if the queen blocks, it also covers the defense square, right? That's important to see. If I was only attacking the queen and I couldn't take it like this, if I had to take it with my queen, that wouldn't be any good. Also, this move wins. You know, it wins a rook, but why would you want a rook when you can have a queen? So I think that'll probably do it for the very, very basic beginner's introduction to tactics. If you can understand most of the things in this video, then you'll be off to a good start trying to solve some puzzles. If you can know what checks are, checkmates, some backrank ideas, you can definitely get through some of the earlier puzzles that chess.com might give you. And I'm going to be doing some more advanced tactics in later videos, but overall I just hope you enjoyed this one, learned something new, and I can hopefully help you get over that big 1000 bump that so many people are trying to achieve. So thanks for watching, I'll see you next time. Bye.